All right, welcome back to the Redeeming Real Estate Podcast. Once again, my name is Robbie Osinga.
And I'm BJ Armstrong. And again, at least half of the reason why I'm here on this earth is my dad, Brian.
Appreciate that. Last week, we got into the story of how you got started into the real estate business, and that you were pursuing, you had a great product, and you are also pursuing a great profit, which isn't a bad thing. Neither of those things are inherently bad in and of themselves. But we kind of got to the point where you said we were getting up to the point where there was a switch that was flipped, and this is a story that BJ kind of shared with me offhand, that there was something that happened from your perspective based off of something that changed in your life. Do you want to lead up with that?
Yeah. What I noticed more than anything is that there came a time when actually we moved churches.
Okay.
Right. And from my perspective, that was probably I don't speak for myself, right? But that for me was the thing that started to open up some new doors, and you just start to see the world in a different way, right?
Okay.
We go to church went to a summer camp once. This was junior high summer camp at Little Galilee.
Okay.
And again, it just changes the world. All of a sudden, you go, oh. Not everybody lives life the way that I live it, and not everybody thinks the things that I think, and there's actually another way out there, and that's really what I discovered right around that period of my life. So
okay,
it was really the Eastview thing, probably though, that changed our lives cumulatively.
Mm-hmm. I think so. As I look back at in about 1982.
Okay.
Went to Eastview for the first time, and I got to throw this story in here. I'm laying in bed because Sunday mornings are my day off.
Yeah.
Or if I can get it, you might have to go out and show a house or do something in the afternoon. But
yeah.
I'm going to sleep in that one morning, and my wife Karen came in with the kids, and all of them stood in front of the bed, and she said, "We're going to go to a new church this morning."
I don't remember that, but
oh, it's so vivid in my mind. I'll never forget the picture. And there's no way you can say no. So I said okay, and went and walked in the door, and one of the pastors there I knew, had a relationship with, and so we had an immediate connection. Went in, his kids picked up my kids, and they went off and did their thing. We went to church that morning. Went to Sunday school right after that because this pastor taught the Sunday school, and we came back for church that night. First time that's ever happened in my life.
Pretty big ramp up there.
No
that
church
was a spread.
three times in a day.
I think I was about ready to find something new in my life anyhow. And part of it was I didn't allow myself any margin. The work was and I knew, in fact, I felt guilty about my marriage, about the kids, what was happening. They were becoming teenagers, or kind of in those early years of developing to where, we could be headed for big trouble, and I didn't know what to do about it.
Wow.
So
So all of this was happening leading up to, in your head, it was starting to kind of show up on your radar.
Sure.
Pressure was starting to build.
Yeah. I'm starting to hear something from the pulpit there that makes sense to me, and I'm putting that together. Within a year's time, Karen and I both were baptized.
Wow.
And we became followers of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And big change for us. I mean, it made a change. Moving from the family church to going to this church seemed odd, and all that took place at the same time. But after that, so BJ became a Christian. Mm-hmm. Shelley became a Christian. Stephanie became a Christian. My whole family, in about a year's time, had made that commitment, and that commitment continues to change our lives even today.
Man, so not just a big shift in the way your Sunday mornings look, not just a big shift in you already had some pressure building,
right?
But it instantly begins to permeate all facets of
Here's
life.
what I'm super curious about, and just hearing you say this, and knowing my own personal and internal struggles. When you say that there's no margin, right? No margin in your life. That's something that absolutely I struggle with every day of my life. And then we've also kind of been through a conversation where things were kind of about money and growing the business and making that as big as possible. Did that just turn off?
Well, I think what it was is that that ambition to build 50 houses a year, and then that wasn't enough, so you'd be 60, you'd be 100. There was never, for me and my personality, there was just never a stopping point to stand back.
Ceiling.
I couldn't stand back and enjoy it.
Yeah.
For me, it doesn't make that wrong. That was the right way to grow the business. But just for me, it was something that I just couldn't keep up with anymore. And I think that's what it said is, you know what, Brian, financially you can do this. And there comes that again. It's still in my life, but I could make some choices. And one of those choices was that I can do this, I can do life differently here.
I'm just curious about this, and this may not even show up right, but for somebody that can't make that choice. So I don't have the luxury today of being able to say, hey, I'm just done with it. I'm going to go choose my family now. Most of us, besides Robbie maybe, don't have that choice. So what would you tell somebody in my spot at 45 years old that's driving hard, probably almost as hard as what you did at one time, doesn't have that kind of ability, financial ability to say, I'm going to shut it off? What do you do?
It worked for me because it was part of the process. But you've got to have a dream. Yeah, that sounds trite, doesn't it? But everybody has a dream, and God has a plan for each one of us. Starting to realize that is that I'm not this guy. I'm not. Don't try to be like him. That's not it. Find out. Somewhere you've got to find out for yourself who you are, what God's plan is for you, and go do that.
Man, and boy, this is BJ and I spent a lot of time talking about that exact subject, and you're right. What we're talking about here is self-awareness, because and up till that point in time, you were kind of looking at maybe other things, other people, and going, I want that, or I want to be like them, or I want to be like that, and hadn't done enough to kind of go, but hey, who am I, and what am I supposed to do?
I can tell you, even from a father-son relationship, when you say don't compare yourself, right? Go dig out of yourself whatever's in there and whatever God's calling is. How freeing is that to go, oh, you mean I don't have to do it like you did, right? I mean, I get to do it a different way, and I actually have a different calling than you did. It's incredibly freeing.
Yeah, and so BJ, you asked earlier, what do you say to that person who doesn't have the financial margin to just be like, I'm out, and to go invest in family? I would say my gut reaction as a person who cares deeply about people living a life worthy of their calling is stay where you're at for a moment, breathe, identify that you need a shift in your life, and then begin to figure out and dive in and ask yourself the hard questions. There's some great tools and resources that, if anyone wants to reach out to us, we'd be glad to point them towards. But to be able to go, okay, it's not that I have to do this right now, but I do need to right now begin thinking differently.
Right.
It's not acting necessarily or behaviorally or how your 9 to 5 goes. I need to be starting on a new path.
Right.
I don't even know exactly what that is yet, but I need to figure out what makes me tick, and I need to lean more into that, not just trying to keep up with the Joneses. Yeah. And that's easier said than done, but it is absolutely worth it. Absolutely worth it. So for you, as you started making this shift, what began to become more your dream? What did you start to take off of the top goals, and what did you start to put in its place?
Well, I think there's a change that takes place, mentally.
Yeah.
And I remember that in one particular instance, and because BJ's here, I'll share this one. But I had to change. If I said I'm going to be a Christian now, there has to be some change that takes place in my life. And I remember one specifically, the discipline around our house could get harsh or hard, and maybe that's similar in every.
It was like 3 black guys.
In every case, but didn't beat him up too bad. But there's one night that we went through that. BJ went to his room and slammed the door, and I went, I got to go in. We got to talk about this, and I said, you know what? I haven't been the dad that I want to be, and so I'm asking you to forgive me and give me another chance. and we just start from there.
Yeah.
That's the starting point. So, but if I hadn't had the courage to do that inside, from the heart coming out from me, that sets the pace. Didn't mean I did it perfectly, but
Right.
but I did. It was a heartfelt moment. I meant that, and would still mean it today.
Yeah. So if before the top 3 priorities were job, and job, what became the new ones?
Yeah, it's easy to answer that today. So God became a first priority in my life. That would be the first thing that I pursue. And my marriage, my family, and other people, friends, relationships, become that second priority, and my job became the third priority.
Wow. So as a result, what are the practical ways that those shifts began to show up? We'll work backwards. So let's start. How did that first affect the business? So if it went from the first 3 places to the third of, what were some of the real practical things that we can grab a hold of that began to shift in the business?
While I was still in the family business?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it just going through my mind, you've got freedom. The freedom is there, and not just financially. I think all of a sudden in my mind, wow, there's another way I can do life without just being this way. Not everybody would choose to do that. That was just for me, from inside me. So that's the starting point, and letting that gel for a couple of years. I think in 1986, about 4 years later, I came to the decision that there has to be more to life than just the struggle of 12, 14 hours a day and day after day. So
it wasn't an overnight process.
No, it took a while.
It took a little while,
and there was fear involved. Didn't want to do that.
I know nothing of what you speak. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because this is interesting for me too. But you also, there was a time, 50 years old is what I'm gonna say. I don't know if that's right, but you essentially quit or left the family business and took some time off and then started a new business. I'm curious to know what changed in the new business. How did your daily life play differently in the new business versus the old? Because somewhere along the way you also decided that, hey, you kind of wanted to work.
Oh, sure.
Right.
No, I couldn't be done. There was too early in life to say that we're going to walk away from this. So, after I made that choice, and I, to sit down with Dad and my brother and say, you know what?
It's a fun conversation.
I'm going to go do something else. And it was very uncomfortable. I tried to explain where I was coming from and all that, and I probably did a poor job of that. I'm sure I did. In fact, just so I don't forget to say that, I've been back to them, and I've said, you know what, I apologize. I didn't do that right.
Yeah.
It could have been better. So part of it, but I went out in the first year and I built a few houses and never stopped doing it. And a gentleman came up to me, Bob Cornwell, and said, hey, think we might make a team together. Would you want to try it? And I was pretty cautious about partnerships and that kind of thing, and said, I think it worked out that we'd try a couple of houses and see how things worked, and we were like-minded.
Yeah.
We had some same goals in mind. One of them was that we wanted more time for our family to be able to actually make that happen. And I'm going, trusting God is part of it. You go, okay, we'll give that a try. A couple of years later, it was excellent. I did that for 20 years with Bob. The combination between the two of us, I had certain talents and gifts.
Sure.
And he had certain talents and gifts, and the two things just melded together.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, so just to give some people an idea of the economy of scale here, we're talking, you went from a business that was, you had mentioned 60, 70, and it was always, practically speaking, what did your relationship with Bob, how many homes a year were you doing?
Yeah, so we just said we'll do whatever shows up. But it ends up being about 12 homes a year. And we did custom homes. We did stuff that was fun, creative.
Yeah.
And I can still look around the community and see those homes and go, wow, they still look good to this day.
Yeah.
Good ideas.
Yeah.
Right. And not that the other model is bad. It was just different.
Yeah, different model.
Yeah.
And just the time to have a chance at life.
So talk to me about the
Yeah.
time aspect. If both of you had a similar goal of spending more time with family, that's sort of the next, if moving up the chain here. Number 3, the business changed and you went from that many homes to 12 custom, let's say. Then you move into the family stuff. What did making more time for family or making more time for these relationships, what did that practically look like for you?
During those days, the marriage kind of dissipates. It just does. And if you're not paying attention to it, it goes away quickly. So to spend more time together, and we had a common bond. Karen and I did a common bond in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That makes the difference. All of a sudden, divorce is not an option.
Right.
That entered into the thought process at some point during there. So to take that out of the equation, I can choose to love my wife.
Right.
And I can choose to love my kids. There's the fault finding can go away, and I can start to examine and say, you guys have got great potential. And to feed that into your own kids, to bless your own kids, is incomparable. You have to do that.
Well, BJ, you tell me from your perspective, what in that family dynamic and the relational dynamic, what did you see as a shift as a 12, 13, 14-year-old, however you were at that time?
I can't say that I noticed that dramatically. I think part of what happens as a teenager is that when I entered those years, 13, 14, 15, I could give a rip anymore. Seriously, right? I didn't care anymore. So essentially, I was already distancing myself. I think what happens, and you've kind of hinted at a little bit, the whole process of choosing. When you say, hey, I'm choosing a marriage now, and I'm choosing a life, and I'm choosing to follow God, what happens is that you get grace and blessed with all this other stuff. So
it's a residual halo effect.
Yeah, I can't really say that I noticed this major cataclysmic change, right? But I'm still here, right? And our family was still together. So
still talk to each other.
There is no other reason other than that I'm going, that's the reason.
Yeah. On a real practical level, and let's fast forward to now. Personally, what does relationship with God look like? If that's number one, what are just some real practical ways that you, like any relationship, that's a choice on both ends. So what are the ways you choose to enter into a relationship with God? Because it was a foreign concept for you, it sounds like.
Oh, sure.
And it is for a lot of people.
So it's been let's say it was 1982 when we first got that touch.
Yeah.
So I can't add that fast. But
that's all right. I can. I was born in 1982, so that would be 33 years.
Oh, okay, 33 years. So I've been working at it for 33 years, and my goal is to become a fully devoted follower of Christ. Yeah. Can I explain what that means exactly? No, but it's a process of becoming that. And so what I do now is, church is real important to me. It fills me up. Talking about the Holy Spirit, it just fills me up, so I can come out of there. I lead a Bible study on Thursday nights that we do once a week, and there are about 20 people in there that have become close friends. People that I could count on. If something happened to me, they'd bring me a meal, or they would, come to the house and they'd follow up on it. Hey, I never had that anywhere.
You had no margin for it.
I didn't have time to develop that, right? And didn't think I needed it.
Yeah.
And personal Bible study.
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen to you. Developing a relationship with anybody takes some effort on both sides. And so if Jesus is over here, he's talking to me and filling me up with his word, we just become closer and closer as that continues to go on through the year. So I'm not done yet.
Yeah.
I got more to learn, and there's still some time to do it, but it's better. And there's certain comfort level that I have. I know for sure that I'm going to go to heaven. Yeah. I've got 9 grandkids now, and my 3 kids have already been there, but all of those kids are being brought up in the church and know that. There's a real comfort for me to know that those kids are on the right track. they're going to be 16 and 17 and something's going to change and they'll come back. But I really trust that, and I know they've got a good foundation to start with.
Yeah.
That whole conversation starts to get into legacy. Right? And so one of the things that I struggle with today is this: what are you building this business for? And when you talk about grandkids and that stuff, and I have a legacy now that when we started talking, I said that I got this head start, right? I got a different head start than those grandkids are going to get, right? Because they're going to show up at a new place. So if we can take all of this kind of combined knowledge and faith and I'm just thinking about what they get to do with it, and it's pretty awesome, the opportunities that are ahead of them.
It's a game changer. Yeah. Well, I think I'd like to get into more of the practical ways then that we can apply this into the lives of realtors, builders, even interested consumers who are in the marketplace. There's some practical steps that each of you have learned to do this real estate thing differently, and I'd like to. Let's talk about that in our third conversation, and we'll come back to that. Again, guys, thank you for this. This is great. I love hearing people's stories, especially the way that the moment that God enters the equation, stuff changes, and it heads in a direction that's altogether better. So we're going to talk more about some of those practical ways on the next episode. So thank you, and we'll be back again next week.